Good evening, folks. My name is Victor Muyakane, and if you're joining us right now, this is a daily report from the home of untold stories, TV47. Tonight, we have a lot in store for you, including a conversation around some of the biggest issues in our country today. Something that has hit the headlines, the story of a deputy president who is historic in nature in terms of his political career, and what's happening right now, the impeachment, equally as historic for a man whose career, the rise and fall, has been meteoric. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on. Furthermore, we've got clinical officers on the streets. Why? We want to find that out and to give you an idea of what their grievances are, what their pain points are. Please keep it right here. Tonight, we're going to be doing it different from how we've done it before. Keep it right here on TV47, the home of untold stories. But first, the highlights. Tonight, the court is to rule on Friday on whether to refer the Deputy President's impeachment case to the Chief Justice for empanelment. The DP wants the case heard by a bench of judges. Also tonight, senators to hear and determine the fate of DP Gachagua in a plenary sitting on Wednesday and Thursday next week.
And the Senate shall then investigate the matter in plenary on Wednesday the 16th and Thursday the 17th of October 2024. The Senate is accordingly guided.
Plus, the Kitengela 3 speak.
For 2 days without food, only some water. That was higher power.
But their address was interrupted by police as they gave their ordeal in the hands of the law enforcers. And clinical officer interns stage a demonstration demanding 7 months' salary arrears. Folks, this is just a glimpse of what we have in store for you. Come along for the ride as we try to cover what's happening in our country in these historic times. To begin, we start with arguably the biggest story in our country right now. 281 members of parliament last night voted for the ouster of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. If his ouster will be successful, then he might go down in history as Kenya's first deputy president to be removed from office through an impeachment. Now, as Mike Kagwongo reports, 35 years ago, the fifth vice president of Kenya, Josephat Njuguna Karanja, resigned to avoid a vote of no confidence in parliament, matters similar to where we find ourselves. This is a story that kicks off our coverage.
Tuesday afternoon, Kenyan Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua walked back to the august house not as Mathera legislator, but as a DP accused of gross misconduct and misuse of office, confident of how he will defend his 11 charges against him. The DP appeared to read from a different mood from his Monday media interview at his official residence in Karen. For 2 hours, he defended himself from the allegations against him through video and other evidence. In his defense, the DP termed his woes as a political process and urged lawmakers to make their decisions free from coercion and intimidation.
Article 29C, Mr. Speaker, states that every person has the right to freedom and security of the person, which includes the right not to be subjected to any form of violence from either public or private sources.
Minutes after 9 p.m. and 281 members of parliament voted for his ouster, while 44 voted against.
The ayes, 281.
Only one member of parliament abstained. Immediately after the decision, the second in command in his social media handle quoted the holy book verses that say, "Give thanks in all circumstances." His message ended with a quote, it is well. The vote was well above the 117 votes constitutionally required to approve Mwengi Mutuse's motion to impeach the country's number 2.
We respect their decisions. It is not a party decision. It was not sanctioned by the party. We respect the independence of Parliament and in totality the National Assembly and the Senate.
It is ule uamuzi mulifanya, sisi tuko nyuma yenu, na lakini muliufanya kwa asili 100%.
The motion now goes to the Parliament's upper house, which will debate the matter and also hold a vote next week. If Senate also approves the motion, Gachagua will become the first deputy president to be removed from office through an impeachment while he is serving as Kenya's second deputy president under the 2010 constitution. Kenya's 5th Vice President, Josephat Njuguna Karanja, was ousted, but he resigned in 1989 to avoid an ongoing vote of no confidence in Parliament. Although Gachagua has promised to oppose the process in court, the removal from the office is automatic under Kenya's constitution if granted by both houses. Gachagua has, however, exuded confidence in independent institutions. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
And grief has engulfed Mathare North Area 2 residents after 2 female bodies were retrieved from the Nairobi River following an ongoing initiative to restore Nairobi River. Mathare residents fear that there could be more bodies in the river and are calling on the government to take action. Anastasia Mukabi reports.
Two bodies were retrieved at Nairobi River along Mathare North Area 2 Wednesday afternoon, following the ongoing youth cleaning initiative to restore the river.
Tumepata 2 bodies hapa kwa ile wakati ya kuchimba kutoa takataka kwa hii mtaro ya maji. So hiyo kitu tumefanya kazi ya leo. So far body zimechukuliwa wamepelekwa mochari hizo 2.
Residents suspect that the 2 women are part of the people who went missing after heavy rains were witnessed mid this year.
Ni kama walitoka na flood na hakupatikana ile wakati wa flood, na kama walikuwa hapo chini ya bridge hakupatikana. So leo kwa ile kata kutoa na wanapatikana saizi.
The residents feared that there could be more bodies buried under this bridge and called on the government to take action.
Serikali kuje, juu watu wengi bado wako hapo. Tunataka serikali kuje, wakuje na hizo tingatinga zao, wabomoe hapo.
And I would like to urge the government to ensure that they remove all the building materials, the remains of the building materials. They remove them so that we can identify whether there are still more bodies.
Police, who later came in to take the unidentified corpse to the morgue, reaffirmed the residents that they have started investigations to identify the cause of the death. Anastasia Mkabi, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, folks, tonight the Deputy President wants the Chief Justice, Martha Koome, to be able to constitute a special bench of judges to determine his ouster by the National Assembly. Of course, he says that this actually raises weighty constitutional questions. In an application filed at the High Court through his lead counsel, Paul Muite, the Deputy President argues that there was no proof that he was elected under a presidential system of government which was in gross violation of the Constitution. This is one of the key things that has actually emerged in this impeachment process. If you've been watching, no doubt you've heard conversation and debate around this, the question of constitutionality. And this is just one of the things that actually will be playing center, or rather taking center stage. Remember, folks, we're living in unprecedented times. History is being made as we speak, and what happens in this scenario will likely inform what's going to happen in future cases if we ever find ourselves in a place like this, which is why a case like this is vitally, critically important to be done in the best way possible, because this will be the example, will be the template that future generations and perhaps even future crises similar to this will be handled. Once again, folks, the Deputy President wants the Chief Justice Martha Koome to constitute a special bench of judges to determine his ouster from office by the National Assembly. Says it actually raises weighty constitutional questions, and this is, of course, in an application filed at the High Court through his lead counsel, Paul Muyakane. And the Deputy President is actually questioning some of these things. Here's the story for your perusal.
With more than 20 petitions challenging his impeachment before the courts, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is back in court to challenge Tuesday's vote by 281 MPs to impeach him.
Yes.
Gachagua, through his lead counsel Paul Muyakane, wants Chief Justice Martha Koome to constitute a bench of judges to determine his ouster, which he says raise weighty constitutional questions of an elected leader impeached without proof of gross violation of the Constitution, and whether the DP was accorded a fair trial, arguing the motion was rushed, contrary to the standing orders.
It is not a question of a majority in the National Assembly, for whatever reason, saying we have no confidence in so and so. The fact that you may have the numbers does not entitle you to impeachment. There has to be proof of gross violation.
Speakers of the two houses of Parliament, Moses Wetangula and Amason Kingi, opposing the application before High Court Judge Justice Lawrence Mugambi, saying the application is overtaken by events, while arguing it does not warrant a bench, saying Parliament followed the law and that the courts have no jurisdiction over the matter.
There was a resolution by the National Assembly, my lord, that impeached the Deputy President. And under that, my lord, the matter has since been referred to the Senate. And a Gazette notice, my lord, convening the hearing of the Senate proceedings for impeachment, my lord, has been issued.
The Senate is now seized of the matter. What they do or don't do, or how they exercise that discretion, is yet to be seen, so that even the question of jurisdiction under Article 165.4 at this point is premature.
Muyakane further wants the bench to rule on the recent public participation on the impeachment motion, falling short of calling it a sham, saying it was inadequate, while questioning whether Parliament can conduct a fair process. Justice Mugambi will rule on the matter on Friday, on a case the Law Society of Kenya has been enjoined. With more than 20 petitions before the courts, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is leaving nothing to chance inside and outside Parliament ahead of Friday's crucial High Court ruling. Apul Kamau, TV47 at the Milimani Law Courts.
Still on this matter, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua found himself eating humble pie after changing tune on attacking the media and Parliament. The second-in-command has not shied away from attacking these two institutions before. George Maringa reports on the Deputy President's love-hate relationship with the media and Parliament and how this week alone he's had to change his tune. Take a look.
He had been described as a sharpshooter with his words who did not take any prisoners during the campaigns. And shortly after taking his oath of office at Kasarani 2 years ago, Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua's inaugural speech was as fiery as it came.
It became a crime in this country to be afraid of William Ruto. It is only that it was not put in the penal code. From today, I want to tell the people of Kenya that you are finally free. I want to tell public servants, I want to tell all the people of Kenya, from now, you don't have to talk with each other through the WhatsApp for fear of being recorded and persecuted by state agencies.
A great defender of the government he was part of, Gachagua trailed his guns on two institutions which he blamed for his wars, the first casualty being the media.
These media people, Prime Cabinet Secretary, don't worry about them. These are Azimio people. They are part of Azimio. So you should not be bothered about them. They joined Azimio to run fake opinion polls. They wrote headline after headline that William Ruto stands no chance. They are still in denial. They are still hoping that Raila can push us to bring him into government and then they can join government too. That is why they are glorifying violence and anarchy, because they are part of Azimio. So nyinyi watu ya magazeti, kama mnangojea hii serikali ya William Ruto isabaratike, you will wait for a long time. You join that Azimio brigade and your fellows, tukutane kwa debe. Na msitusie sisi woga.
He maintained his stance while attacking the media countless times, despite the Media Council of Kenya warning the political class from attacking the fourth estate.
We expect the media also to be responsible. Okay. And we expect the media to know the elections are over. Okay. Azimio lost. We know you went to bed with them. Can you stop living in denial and get back to work and work professionally and objectively and report to the people of Kenya the happenings as they unfold? Okay.
In his defense, he said he was just being a truthful man. The second casualty was Parliament.
I think tomorrow will be the greatest circus. Or do I call it the theater of the absurd?
However, in just under 1 week, the besieged deputy president has changed tune on these two institutions. Come Monday, he praised the work done by the media.
And I really want to thank the media for being a very responsible watchdog on behalf of the people of Kenya. Please continue writing. Where Rigathi Gachagua has gone wrong, please write. But always accord me the right of reply. Don't condemn me unheard. And I want to thank you tonight because you have really written accusations against me. But I am also to blame because I never called you, isn't it? Now that I have called you, I want you to request you. Every accusation, put my answer.
When he faced the National Assembly on Tuesday, he beat another humble pie, even after attacking the Moses Wetangula-led National Assembly arm of government ahead of his impeachment motion debate on Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, if the House took it that I say the House is a theater of the absurd. I was talking about this specific charge of undermining devolution by holding meetings to fight alcohol to be discussed in this House. That to me is what I thought that moment. If it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that will be the theater of the absurd.
Rigathi Gachagua's change of tune from attacks to a total contrast is to the very institutions that have played a vital role in the impeachment process, which is now heading to the Senate. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
And still on this matter, the impeachment trial of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua will now be heard in a plenary at the Senate. Senators failed to agree on a seconder of the motion for the formation of a special committee. This is after the Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna declined to second the motion. And as Elizabeth Mutuku now reports, Gachagua will now face senators on Wednesday and Thursday of next week.
281.
In his communication to the House Senate Speaker Emerson Kingi has ordered the clerk to make the formal invitation to the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua by close of the business today. The National Assembly is also set to be invited after voting in favor of the ouster.
The clerk to issue invitations to appear to the Deputy President today, Wednesday, the 9th of October, 2024. B, the clerk to issue invitations to appear to the National Assembly today, Wednesday, the 9th of October 2024.
Parties in the motion are said to file their responses by 14th of this month, while the document involving the motion should be circulated by the end of the same day. The upper house will then sit on 16th and 17th of this month to make its decision on the motion. All travel by senators and members of staff in the Senate outside the country have been put on halt by Speaker Kingi, while advising the committees to put on hold activities outside Nairobi effective today until Saturday next week. Senators will have a plenary sitting to execute the matter after failing to agree on the formation of a special committee. Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna declined to second a motion by Majority Leader Aaron Cheriot to select a committee to investigate the impeachment.
We have two options as per our standing orders, to either consider this matter by a special committee or the plenary. The motion before us, Mr. Speaker, is a proposal to the House that we select 11 of our members from both sides of the House to consider this impeachment and advise us.
This is a matter that is extremely unique, that has elicited immense public attention, and therefore, Honourable Speaker, given the mood of the House and especially on the minority side, I respectfully decline to second that motion.
Senate will have 10 days after National Assembly impeached Gachagua to deal with the matter. At the Senate, witnesses will also be called before the House makes its decision. Cabinet Mercy Wanjau, Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja, and former KEMSA boss Andrew Mulwa are the three witnesses lined up against Gachagua.
That is why I want to conclude by saying, Mr. Speaker, just add an extra day so that the accusers, which is the National Assembly, can have elaborate time to present their case, and also the Deputy President can have the time to present their case. So that, Mr. Speaker, when they move to another fora, they will have opportunity of having the opportunity of being given a chance and the principles of natural justice. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gachagua's challenge now lies in ensuring that he has at least 22 senators on his side to deny the mover of the motion numbers to send him home. If numbers is anything to go by, the Senate has 67 senators, which comprised of 23 from minority side and 24 from majority side, with 21 nominated as from 2022 general election. But since the shift of some of delegations from Azimio side, they are left with 16 delegations, this making the government majority. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is assured of 7 senators as of now, and who have publicly declared their support to him. They are senators for Nyandarua, Kiambu, Kirinyaga, Muranga, and Kajiado, with the Wiper senators not supporting the motion. Other senators who are likely to shift in his favor include Nyeri, Laikipia, Nakuru, and Lamu. Kiambu Senator Karugo Wathangwa, defender of DP, says the move to oust the DP will live to be remembered in a tweet that appears political. Elizabeth Mutuko, TV47, Nairobi.
Folks, last night, as many of you were, we were glued onto the televisions, watching, listening, waiting with bated breath to understand exactly what Parliament is going to produce. Today, we are joined by one of the members of Parliament, specifically the member for Nandi Hills, who was there in the room, in the flesh, and cast his vote. We're here to talk to him a little bit about what happened. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Sir,
for having me here.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome.
Thank you.
Paint the picture for us. What was the room like? We saw it, but you were there, you felt it. What was the room like as this debate was happening?
I must say that it began, first of all, when this motion was brought to the floor of the House by the Honourable Member Mutuse, and he laid the grounds on why he felt that we needed to have a consideration as the 13th Parliament on the conduct of the Deputy President, and we took time also to go through, and then Afterwards, of course, you remember, we did a public participation also to get the opinion of what our bosses say back in where, villages. And of course, like in Andy Hills, over 95% of the people who polled, who were asked, to give their views about what are their thoughts about the 11 grounds that had been laid about the deputy president. And of course, when we came back, people were very expectant to really debate. And of course, when the Honorable Mutuse took to the floor, he was able to elucidate, convince everyone on, he had done some good research, and there were quite a number of grounds. And of course, if one ground is found, it's sufficient enough to, to take us through. So the whole time it was really charged until the moment, of course, when the deputy president also came to, present his part of the case, and we heard him. And of course, even the more the deputy president spoke, the more, we were able to even poke more holes onto his evidence. But I think the press conference that he did the previous night, and when we termed, of course, that probably the members of parliament is going, the respectable House of Parliament will be a theatre of the absurd, and he says, there was going to be a circus, those types of sentiments, I think went on to push like this is the view of what every member and every leader felt that they're being underrated. Okay. So the expectation of having heard him well, because most of us really wanted to hear his defense. What is he going to say? How is he going to rebuttal it? And thereafter, of course, we went to the vote, and the vote was ecstatic.
A lot of people are curious. A lot of the people that a lot of the members of parliament that voted no were consistent. A lot of them had one thing in common. They said they were voting out of their conscience. Their conscience could not allow them to do this. What did your conscience tell you? What convinced you personally to be able to make the vote that you did?
I would say if the vote was a secret ballot, I can tell you the numbers would be higher. The fears that probably most of the leaders had with the deputy president is not part of the region of this country. He's been able to take so much, solidify the grounds, the people where most people feared if they voted yes, then they were facing, a challenge back from their backyards. And so the numbers would have been more than 281. For me, I felt by voting this, first of all, I'm going to lift to another level the leadership that is going to come into the future, where we are going to kill this aspect of tribalism, where it had become so emboldened, where part of the regions were made to be more superior than others. And we're feeling that when you're in a position of a deputy president, you are supposed to show some level of nationalism, bring everybody on board. Not a situation where you would find somebody, probably you are in one part of the region and you go there, when you're given an opportunity to speak on top of a vehicle, you begin to say, I want to bring you greetings from a particular section of our country. So we feel that we have lifted then the leadership to another level. The leader who is going to come must respect those above him and those slightly below him, and of course the voters.
All right. Here's another thing. They say, in Africa there's a proverb that goes that if the fish comes to tell you that the crocodile is sick, you do not argue with the fish. As somebody who's actually close to the matrix of power, what insight can you give us on why these two people who were very close, who appeared to be very united in spirit and in intention, what actually came in between them to cause such a rift that 2 years down the line, we're talking about an impeachment?
It's glaring even to you, the conduct of our respectable deputy president. It is glaring, we all know how he's been conducting himself. And of course, the other private things that came up, like, the issue of the corruption, accusations and those kinds of things. I don't want to delve there. But as to the finesse of the things that happened between the two leaders, it's another story I may not want to engage into. But I want to say the function of the removal of the deputy president is premised in Parliament. And so for most of us leaders, we felt that the way things are is not at its best. And so the best thing we needed to do is to clean up that office, that any leader who will ever get in to be a servant of the Kenyan people, in whatever position, you take it with due regard that you respect anybody and you know I'm here for a particular reason, respect the law, respect how you treat those, I repeat again, above you and below you.
All right. Now, before I let you go, sir, and before we go on a short break, is Parliament independent?
Parliament is independent. We made that decision consciously. The respectable member brought the motion. We debated the motion, and the mood of the House was, yes, we feel that indeed there has to be a change in this position. I repeat again, this is going to create a shift completely in the leadership of this country and to the future.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking to the Member of Parliament for Nandi Hills. We're talking about Mr. Bernard Kibor. Karibu sana, and thank you for your views. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have a lot more content for you, including conversation around why, a few months down the line after a deal was inked, we have clinical officer interns on the streets. Later on, we'll be looking at all the options available for the Deputy President right now and which way for Kenya. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Good evening. If you're joining us right now, we are at the quarterway mark of the TV47 Daily Report tonight with me, Victor Muyakane. And I'm sure you've noticed a change at sign language. We had the gentleman with this sign, his name is Kevin. Now we have, of course, Rhoda and Yamai. Now we go over to Kitengela, where activist Bob Njagi has narrated his ordeal at the hands of his captors for 32 days in total. In an emotional press conference, Njagi narrated how he was thrown into a dark room, barely 6 by 4 feet in size, and he was stripped off with his hands cuffed behind his back. And as our reporter Samira Mohammed gives us the details, he says it was after 2 days that he was offered water and food. Let's take a look.
I was left on the floor, handcuffed at the back and blindfolded for 2 days.
The anguish of a broken man, the heart-wrenching story of a man shattered, and topping pain of a man who's left marooned, shattered in an aftermath of the Gen Z-led anti-government protests, where extrajudicial killings, abductions and arrests were recorded in the country.
People, we are the people. People power, higher power. People power, higher power.
According to Njagi, on August 19th, he was jacked out of a matatu at Mlolongo bus stop on his way back to Kitengela by 4 masked people who wanted the matatu passengers from recording anything. But a few of the passengers recorded the incident.
The officers shoved me out of the bus forcefully while assaulting me with kicks, blows, slaps, jacking me off my feet and carrying me shoulder high into an awaiting white car. The officers had cautioned other passengers not to take any photos or videos. However, some passengers managed to secretly record the incident.
And after the vehicle drove for some 30 minutes, he arrived at his destination, where he was thrown into a dark room, barely 6 by 4 feet, where Njagi says he was stripped and his hands cuffed at the back, where he stayed this way for 2 days. No food, just a little water.
Inside the white vehicle were 5 men, 2 in the front and 3 at the back. We drove for close to an hour, while all the time I was assaulted until we came to a sudden stop. I was then blindfolded and handcuffed at the back and moved into a second awaiting vehicle that had 4 men. 2 sat at the back on either side and 2 at the front. We drove for complete silence for another 30 minutes until we arrived in our destination. 32 days of terror. I was whisked away into a building and ushered into a small and very dark room. It was the size of 6 feet by 4 feet. I was left on the floor, handcuffed at the back and blindfolded for 2 days without food, only some water. That was
And after these 2 days, his hands were cuffed, but now in their natural front position. He then stayed in the dark, tiny room for 30 days, where he was being offered tea in the morning and a meal at lunchtime, a meal that barely kept him alive. And for the 30 days, he would be taken out once a week to have a 10-minute shower, then return for the lockdown at the tiny house.
On the 3rd day, the handcuffs were removed from the back side and my hands were cuffed on the front side. I was then moved into another room. This is where I stayed locked up, handcuffed, blindfolded for the next 30 days. The room was completely sealed with no light during the daytime or nighttime. The only human interaction I got was when the door would be opened twice a day. In the morning, they would open and hand me a cup of tea while removing the waste bucket and replacing it with another one.
It was on September 20th at around 12:30 a.m. where he was picked from the house and bundled into a waiting vehicle. And this was the first time Njagi was dressed fully since his capture. They then drove for 30 minutes before he was ordered to get off the vehicle. And according to Njagi, it was freezing outside, and by then the cuffs had been removed and his hands tied with a plastic cuff, which took him a while to break free and remove the cloth that covered his face, and later managed to get to Tigoni police station, where he recorded a statement and managed to call his family members, who came take him home some 2 hours later.
On September 20th, 2024, at about 12:30 a.m., 2 men came to the cell and asked me to get up and get dressed. I was then taken outside the building into an awaiting vehicle. They removed the handcuffs and replaced them with plastic tie knots, but I remained blindfolded. We drove around the vehicle for about 30 minutes in complete silence. Finally, the car stopped and one of the men informed me that they were going to release me. In about 15 minutes, I got to Tigoni police station. It was there that I reported the matter, which was booked in the OB. I requested the officers to contact my family, which they did.
Samira Mohammed for TV47.
In other news, for the second time this year, clinical officer interns took to the streets today at the Ministry of Health and Social Health authorities. The clinical officers accused the government of failing to pay them for 7 months. And the clinical officers are also complaining of harsh conditions in the hospitals, conditions that take a toll on their mental health. Arno Dida with the details.
As the dust settles on yet another confrontation between healthcare workers and the ministry, one issue stands out starkly: the controversial rollout of the Social Health Authority SHA.
They have not sent any formal request to us to relook at some of the clauses.
Sisi tuliandika notice ambayo tuliweza tukawapa na ishafika. Mimi najua ilifika.
Clinical officers and health workers across the country are bearing the brunt of this new system, which they claim was hurriedly imposed without the necessary groundwork. For the clinical officer interns on strike today, SHA has become a bitter symbol of unfulfilled promises and systemic failure.
Sisi ambao tunasaidia binadamu ama tunasaidia wananchi wakapate kukaa vizuri, inakuwaje kwamba sisi ndio tunakuwa wakaza kukandamizwa?
The Council of Governors Health Committee Chair added his voice to the ongoing crisis, cautioning health institutions at both the national and county levels against turning away patients due to system challenges.
Mekuwa na tabia mahospitali zetu za serikali, hospitali zetu za binafsi ambayo yote saa hii inatumia hiyo bima, kwamba mtu akiingia saa hii na kwamba hajamaliza kujiandikisha na hako mgonjwa zaidi anatumwa nyumbani. Tumesema kama serikali hiyo ni hatia.
However, according to the chair of the Health Union Caucus, Peterson Washira, SHA's allegedly chaotic introduction has left many health facilities clueless about its operational framework.
I've refused to register over 1,000 private facilities that are registered by the Clinic Officers Council and owned by clinic officers. And the facilities I'm talking about, these are the facilities you find in Turkana, in Lodwar, in the hardship areas.
For the clinical officer interns, the struggle goes beyond administrative blunders. A palpable sense of frustration hung in the air as they took to the streets for the second time this year. What began as a fight for placement in hospital 7 months ago has now evolved into a struggle for basic dignity and survival within their workplaces.
It has been a very rough time without it. Some of us have given our grievances of feeding with patients, having to sleep with the patients, because we have been chased out of our houses by the landlords.
This unfolding crisis comes just a month after the appointment of the new cabinet secretary, who now faces immense pressure to restore order within the healthcare sector. Governor Njuki, while drumming up support for SHA, urged for patience as the ministry works to streamline operations and resolve emerging issues. Ann Odida, TV47.
Now, folks, if you were keen today and just following the story that you just saw, there were clinical officer interns on the streets tonight. And tonight we have the chairperson, the national chairperson of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, and he's here to shed some light into exactly what's happening. Karibu sana, Mr. Washira.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor.
Why were the young people on the streets?
Let me say that it's very unfortunate that for the second time we are on the streets. And the clinic officer interns, and especially the ones that we're having today, the diploma clinic officer interns, because we have two sets of interns. We have the degree interns. They were sent to the internship centers 2 months ago.
That's about 2 months ago, yes.
Yes, but we have the diploma interns who were sent to the internship centers in March. You remember there was fanfare. I almost said they were launched like everything else. By the CS then, they were given contracts which they signed. Your cameras were there. And the contracts were indicating that they were supposed to be paid a certain amount of money per month. But now, 7 months down the line, they have never received a penny. They are unable to continue to facilitate themselves. They cannot pay their rent. They are having to eat the same patients that the same food that the patient eats. I'm not saying the patient's food is bad, but it's not meant for them. It's meant for the patients. They're supposed to fend for themselves. That is why they're given a stipend. They're having to sleep in the hospitals, not because they like doing night duties, but because their houses were locked a long time ago by their landlords and landladies. And so what we are saying is that the ministry and the government must be responsible.
How did it get here? There was a deal that was signed. There was a deal, a legally binding deal. What happened?
I would say it's pure neglect, because they are citing a case that is in court. But you all know that the case that is in court was for the intern degree holders, both clinical, the nurses and the doctors, whose salary was being reduced by the SRC. That is the case in court. It was not about the diploma interns. And for all those who have the case in court, their contracts actually indicate that they will pay the amount that will be determined by the court. But for the diploma interns, the amount to be paid is clearly stipulated there. They have a contract between them and the Ministry of Health, and there is nowhere that contract talks about the SRC. The ministry has not gone to court about the contract. The interns have not gone to court about the contracts. So they're actually in breach of the contract. And that is why the interns have actually come out. Mm-hmm. And it's not actually a strike, because when you can no longer be able to take yourself to a duty station, that is not called a strike. It is a situation where you can no longer be able to deliver the services until you are facilitated. And so that is what we're asking.
All right. But here's a question, and I think a lot of Kenyans would like to know. Are there other avenues of being able to hash this out without having to come to the streets? And have you engaged those avenues? And what was the result for the past 7 months?
We have been writing to the ministry. We have held meetings. When you see us on the strikes and on the streets, it's usually the last resort.
All right.
The most comfortable place for any health worker is in that consultation room, in that ward with their patient, because that is what we swore to do. We took a Hippocratic oath.
All right.
But when you see us out there, it's desperate measures that we are taking to ensure that things are resolved and that we can go back mentally okay to be able to see that patient.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are the next steps now for these young people? What is the next step? There's been protests today. Are there others that are planned? What's the next step to sort this out, even as we transition to the other issue that you have as well?
So we are going to have demonstrations every Wednesday if this is not resolved. And I must also say that even as we come to SHA, these young Kenyans who we send out there on internship and are not paying them, they do not even enjoy a cover, a medical cover, because they were lumped together with the civil servants. And now as civil servants, we actually do not have a cover. And so you deny them their stipend. Of course, they get stress, depression. You remember the case of an intern who committed suicide. They are not able to eat well, so they are predisposed to diseases. But even when they fall sick, they cannot take care of themselves because they don't have an insurance and they have no money that they can be able to use for their medical cover.
I see.
Yeah.
And Mr. Wachira, this is not the only issue that you have right now.
Yes.
As you sit here, there's another problem that you have with the health ministry.
Yes.
What is it and why?
Yeah, we have an issue with the Social Health Authority, and I think our issue is the same issue that many Kenyans do have. that everything about SHA or SHE, that is the Social Health Insurance, which is managed by the SHA, which is the Social Health Authority, was hurriedly done and rolled out, and some basic obvious things that they should have done were not done. The net effect of this is that many Kenyans are not able to access services under SHA. I have my relative in one of the mission hospitals, and we were categorically told that we cannot utilize that. Now, the biggest problem of that is that the board that has been put in place, they're implementing this with vested interest. And the reason as to why I say this is because SHA is supposed to facilitate achievement of universal health coverage. Universal health coverage is about three things: accessibility to health services, the quality of those services is the second thing, and the third thing is the protection of Kenyans from catastrophic health costs. Now, when it comes to access, it means there must be a facility that is nearest to where you are.
Right.
And we have more than 1,000 private facilities registered by the Clinic Officers Council, owned by clinic officers, which SHA has refused to contract, and they are saying they can only contract those that have been registered by the KMPDC.
I see.
Which goes against the SHA Act, the Clinic Officers Act, and the Health Act.
All right.
And the net effect of this is that more than 2 million people are unable to access services wherever they are.
All right. So as just before I let you go, because I understand this is a big issue and it's an ongoing challenge.
Yeah.
Once again, what are the next steps after this? What are you demanding of the government? I understand there's an ultimatum in the air. It's already a few days have elapsed. Talk to us a little bit about what your next steps are going to be as we wind up.
So regarding SHA, we give a notice as all the unions in the public sector that if they are not going to take measures within 14 days, I saw today a circular saying that they are going to extend up to November 20th the comprehensive cover now under SHA. But then we don't know what happens after that.
Okay. So
and the other thing was that we also want to be involved. We don't want to be communicated to on what is happening. We want us to sit down with the government, negotiate about that comprehensive cover.
Okay.
So if that doesn't happen within the 14 days, I think 11 days to go today, then all the public sector workers will be on strike.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Wachira, of course, Mr. Peterson Wachira is the national chairperson of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. Mr. Wachira, we'll be having you here later on to talk about this as those days elapse, and because it's a massive issue and we need to give it the proper time. Thank you for coming. Good evening.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, we continue with the rest of our coverage. And tonight, President William Ruto has appointed veteran journalist Munyori Buku to head the Presidential Communications Service. Of course, prior to this appointment, this gentleman served as the Secretary for Public Communication at State House. He has also served as the Senior Director of Public Communication at State House. He's also served as the Director of Communication in the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister and the Ministry of Finance. And of course, he's also served as the Editorial Manager at the Kenya Yearbook Editorial Board. This appointment, of course, comes months after the president complained of a hitch, or rather challenges, in his administration's communication department, or rather communication in totality, during a media interview. Now, the construction of affordable houses in Nakuru City has been completed, while other houses in various regions of the country are expected to be finalized and ready for occupancy by December of this year. Speaking today during a visit to Tononoka Steel Company in Dandora, the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Housing, Charles Henga, praised the significant role that the company is playing in ensuring the success, or rather the successful execution of the housing projects. Tononoka Rolling Mills has provided the government with 15 million in funding to support the affordable housing project. And this week it will be held in Kwale in line with the government's housing agenda.
They are our main sponsors for next week's Affordable Housing Week. which coincides with our Mashujaa Day on the 20th. So let me from the onset take this opportunity to invite every Kenyan from the 14th to the 18th. We shall be in Diani, Kwale, where we shall be showcasing all the developments that we have undertaken the last 1 year with respect to the affordable housing program. We have given Juakali's industry about 4 billion worth of doors and windows to fabricate.
One of the key projects that is very dear to us is also the Soweto project in Kibera, which will change the life of so many people in the slums. And this is something that we are happy to be part of.
Folks, Kenya is hosting 45 countries for an annual summit of the African Confederation of Cooperatives, Savings and Credit Associations, which is happening in Naivasha. Our reporter in Naivasha, Willie Dennis Njero, reports.
Speaking during the official opening, Kenya's Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has alluded the government's commitment to support the SACCOs and credit unions across Africa that impact socio-economic marks, inclusion and influence.
Cooperatives serve as a powerful engine for empowerment and social cohesion. Their strength lies in our shared vision, unified purpose, and the resilience that propels us forward, ensuring no one is left behind in the pursuit of economic and social progress in the lives of rural and urban poor communities, with a focus on key pillars such as agricultural transformation, the MSME economy, housing and settlement, and the digital superhighway and creative economy.
Friday, the 2,000 delegates will flood Utumishi Academy, boys, girls and the primary unit for a tree planting exercise as they mitigate the climate changes.
The African Cooperative Climate Action Plan is a significant step towards helping countries, including Kenya, better preserve and conserve the environment, enhance resilience, adapt to and mitigate climate change.
Kenya will host the event again in 45 years on rotational basis. It has been lauded to champion and top the cooperative movements, with Stima and Police SACCOs topping the list in Africa.
Kenya Police SACCO and Stima SACCO have received probably the highest number of international delegates because of the things that they do within their space. The thing that they do, they see that they serve their membership.
We are excited to share our unique experiences and innovative practices with all of you as we strive to deepen our cooperative movement and spur economic development.
Reporting for TV47 from Naivasha, Nakuru County, I'm Willie Dennis Njiro.
Sports News.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side. We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, Grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Folks, historic times, and like we said, the man whose career has been meteoric and historic in its rise and what's looking like the fall. To help us understand where we are and where we're going on this matter of the impeachment, we have Mr. Kibe Mungai, who's a lawyer of many years standing and an analyst who's got a lot of insight into matters like this. Karibu sana, sir.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here for the first time since you're in.
How do we look? We look great, don't we?
Look great.
Fantastic. What's not looking great is, of course, the career of the Deputy President right now. Talk to us exactly where, like, when you look at what is happening right now,
yes,
a lot of people quite simply cannot believe their eyes.
Yes.
This thing is moving very, very fast. It's like a bullet train. And like a bullet train, it is not stopping anytime soon. Talk to us about your feelings and thoughts on just how fast this thing is moving.
Well, I happen to know, and it is a public fact, that during the campaigns for 2022, there were many alliances in central Kenya, where there were people who aligned with the Azimio coalition, and the majority, as it had turned out to be, led by the Deputy President, went to Kenya Kwanza. Now, the main arguments by those of us who aligned with Azimio was that there was never going to be a happy marriage between William Ruto and his supporters from the Gema communities who supported him. Now, in many ways, moving from evictions, moving from the curtailment of businesses in Gekomba, recently the Wakulima market, what people feared would happen, that there would be systematic persecution of ordinary people, that has now culminated into the motion of impeachment against the Deputy President, was basically foreseeable. So to many of us, what has happened is it was always going to happen.
It's not a surprise.
There is no surprise. It is a situation whereby the majority of the people in central Kenya simply seriously miscalculated in a big way. And they chose to hear themselves and not to listen to people who are saying, this is, you are getting into a valley that you will not be able to extricate yourself bila majonzi. So
Right.
the majonzi that we are seeing is something that you can't really say you are surprised. But of course, it has been rushed. I believe we shall be talking about the nature of the charges. There was an urgency.
You think it's being
that
rushed?
is inexplicable. It's being rushed in the sense that when you look at the flippant manner in which those charges have been prepared, the serious lack of, stinging evidence. From a lawyer's point of view.
From a lawyer's point of view.
There is really no charge that could stick. There is really nothing that you can really be able to say. These are 11 charges. And be able to say...
Out of 11?
Out of 11.
From your opinion,
that
can stick?
This is an opinion that I can be able to say because for my own credibility, I can be able to say this one, there is cause for concern, he could be guilty. Here, there could be a violation. There was really nothing. And you could actually be able to see it yesterday. After the Deputy President spoke, was it Monday or whatever?
Yes,
when he spoke on Monday,
yes.
And he was able to demonstrate that there was no substance to those charges. You could see yesterday people saying, oh, he doesn't respect women, he has committed treason, he's arrogant, everything. He has stolen from the family of his late brother. All these things that you could actually be able to see that the allegations that were made, nothing was really sticking. And he was able to demonstrate on Monday that this was just malice, but it was also malice that comes with a determination that you really don't have to be guilty. You know, they say, if you want to hang a dog, you give it a bird's name. So all that was here, the charges, was just something to justify a vote.
All right.
And there was a considerable whipping of the MP. And for the National Assembly, it is a sad moment because they basically voted like sheep.
But I've got to ask you a question. Just on that point,
yes.
You did say that the people of the mountain region appear to have miscalculated in 2022.
Absolutely.
And it's biting them. It's come around to bite them.
Yes, it's biting them.
Then how then can you explain the conduct of their members of parliament, many of whom are actually from the very mountain? Are the MPs that voted yes to the impeachment out of touch with the ground? Is that what you're saying? Are they not representing the views of their people?
Of course they don't, and that's not is an open secret. It is a situation whereby there was a choice to vote in accordance with the expectations of your people and to please whoever you thought is your master. They chose the master. You'd assume in a democracy the people are the masters, but it wasn't the case.
All right.
You can check it everywhere in central Kenya. This was an unpopular impeachment, particularly for the lack of substance. You know, by there, I'm still in Azimio. So, and I believe the deputy president himself was quite cantankerous, was extremely unfair to the former president Uhuru Kenyatta. He's one of the people who misled people into what is obviously a mistake. So you cannot really say that it's free of responsibility for the misadventure that Kenya Kwanza is turning out to be.
So you're saying the writing was on the wall?
It was always there.
But here's another question, and I think, let me take you in a different direction. A lot of people are asking themselves, what is it about the deputy position in this country that lends itself to such situations? This is not the first time we've had a crisis involving a number two. You know, in terms of the presidency. Kenya has had more vice presidents than presidents. We've also got, somebody was drawing a parallel to the situation with deputy governors. From a legal point of view, is there a weakness somewhere in our laws, perhaps, that fails to protect this? Is the vice president position or the number two position a poisoned chalice?
I think a presidential defect should not be projected into the deputy president. Because during the first year, as the deputy president Gachagua himself was saying, when the President Uhuru, you remember the famous questions of who is this guy from Citizen? The journalist.
The journalist, yes.
When he asked the president during the campaigns, are you going to open the dogs to your deputy like it has been happening to you? He made what was supposed to be a solemn oath that he will protect the deputy president, he will not be harassed. Of course, he was not harassed in the first year, and we could all see, but in the second year, you could see every effort, no effort was spared, to humiliate him, to have, like he said, people belittling him, people ridiculing him in public, you know, and all these people at that time were supposed to be people gravitating around the president. Therefore, you could see that there was some presidential blessings to whatever wars that he was facing at that particular time. Therefore, the starting point would actually be that these acts of harassment, we started seeing them from people around the president, including his personal secretary, Farouk Kibet, including people like Sudi.
But how can they get away with it?
But they got away with it because you just have... there is actually no weakness in the laws per se. Because, like now, when you say the president can be removed on the basis of a motion of impeachment, now the threshold is very high. And I would actually want to see how it will work out in the court. because I do not even expect, even before a magistrate court, not a single of these charges, anybody can be convicted. So when this matter goes to the High Court, it will be a big moment that in a constitution in which, you know, the basic idea of the constitution was this, like in America, that since the deputy president is a key player, both as an acting president and the person who becomes a substantive president in the event that the incumbent leaves office or the office becomes vacant for whatever reason, that person should have gotten the endorsement of the people through an election. Okay? So they provided that just like the president, there would be an elaborate way to, just like it is in the US, to remove him from office. In the US, I do not think that in all these many years that we've had, I am aware of the presidential whatever impeachments.
But never.
And it is because the president exercises executive power. But it is never, like, for example, a deputy president in Kenya does not have power to appoint anyone, to apportion resources. He's basically a person with great potential when the office becomes vacant, but on a day-to-day basis, he just holds an office, probably awaiting the big office, because he's only functional and effective in office to the extent that the president delegates useful role for him. But this one here was fighting alcohol, being formed like the chairman of coffee commissions, tea commissions. He was never really in power. In fact, strictly speaking, when you look at those charges, particularly those ones that concerns corruptions, you see evidence of a man who was not really in power. He was completely in the periphery of power. Because, and this is, you can pick from the news. This is not personal opinion. You can actually be able, when there was a lot of theft in the Ministry of Agriculture, in the Ministry of Moses Kuria, in the Roads Ministry, in this one of Energy, those were the people who are in it. And if the deputy president was involved in it, you could actually get a hot iron kind type of case. But you could see there was really nothing. Because, and that to me speaks to the fact that he has been a peripheral figure in the management of the Ruto state, as it were.
Be that as it may. Now, from where Kenyans are sitting, there's questions. And I'll ask one of those questions to you.
Yes.
What are the options available to the person of Rigathi Gachagua going forward? Talk to me about legal options and talk to me about political options.
Let's start, starting with the legal one. Today, the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Kingi, gave a schedule in which all sides are supposed to do their submission and to file their responses, I believe by Monday, 5 p.m. And on Wednesday and Thursday is when we are going to have these hearings in the Senate, impeachment hearings, the hearing. And therefore, I expect it is on Friday that the voting will take place. Now, that being the case, the issue, obviously, he said he is not resigning, which is a good decision. Therefore, he has to prepare his responses and appear before the Senate. Now, before the Senate sits like a court. In fact, that's a major difference. You see, at the National Assembly, it was just to the confirmation of charges, that the charges are read against you, and you are able to be given a chance to defend yourself before voting takes place. You could be able to see what actually preceded the debate that preceded his defense was clear of a gang that had taken up its mind that whatever it is that he was going to say, nobody was prepared to be persuaded otherwise. That was very clear. And therefore, that's why I was saying that the members of parliament have just turned out to be what Philip Ochieng, you remember the veteran journalist, effectively described the MPs for the 5th Parliament as presidential sheep. you are having a situations whereby the National Assembly of the 13th Parliament are basically some kind of presidential ship who would do anything that the president orders them to do. You remember, like with the finance bill of 2024, they vote against the will of their people. Then the president says, oh, what kind of thing is this that you passed? Now go the other way. Okay?
What about...
And so that you order, where they are the kind of people, when you are told, jump, the only thing they can ask is how high.
But
so
back to the deputy president. Back to the deputy president.
Precisely.
What legal options has he got right now?
Precisely. And I'm saying is to defend himself. And there'll be a trial before the Senate. And I'm sure he's well prepared. And this trial is what I was saying. The Senate is supposed to be a court. But it is a court run by laymen. Like you hear the case. For example, now at the Senate, when you are told that there was corruption charges, or there was with regard to treetop, and with regard to the other hotel,
the outspan and so on. Yeah.
Precisely, the outspan, you would actually have to listen. If there is a 600 million that is involved, one, it's not a crime to have 600 million on the face of it. The crime would actually be that you can be able to link 600 million to a corruption scandal or to money laundering, anything of this kind. These are on the basis of the book, that document that we saw. There is nothing linking to it. So the Senate, one by one, you would have to say, have you found anything that would amount that 600 million is stolen money? At the National Assembly, they could get away with saying that he bought treetops.
So the threshold is higher.
No, the responsibility is higher, as in you will have to say, because there must be a report. You will have actually to say, we made this finding. You know, like a judgment. There will be what is, the verdict would be what is effectively like they do it in court. That before they say, I have your money, there must be proof, if I'm a judge, that I made a finding because of this reason, that that the charge has been proven. So you have my money.
we can actually expect a much more robust interrogation of the charges.
Precisely.
And we can also expect a much more robust defense from the deputy president. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. The defense and the charges are not going to change considerably, because they are already been tabled.
Fair enough.
Yes.
From where you sit,
yes.
What can Kenyans expect out of that process? Number one. Number two, what can Kenyans and what should Kenyans expect out of, let's say, we've heard about the option of the courts coming into play. What can Kenyans actually expect from these two options that present themselves?
Yeah, of course, the expectation is there are two levels at the Senate. For the 11 charges, how many are the senators going to say, after going through the evidence and interrogations, that they have been proven or not? So level one is whether the charges have been proven, okay, or to the acceptable standard. Then level two is when the vote is called, okay, how will people vote? That is, will people vote despite whether or not it has been proven or not? Because that didn't seem to bother anyone at the National Assembly.
Okay.
But for the Senate and for their sake, and for the sake of Kenya, it should bother them. Why should it actually bother them? It should bother them for one reason. I believe it is important. I explain this. This is the first trial at the Senate, correct? Even for first impeachment of a deputy president at that level, the deputy president is part of the presidency, as it were. Now, there's a lot of responsibility how we handle the first impeachment, because already the National Assembly has clearly failed at the level of responsibility. I wouldn't blame them exactly, because there was a lot of harassment, there was a lot of whipping.
But you expect different.
Which now happened at that particular time. The whipping and the cajoling, I don't think it will not say that it will not happen at the Senate. But you see, but what I'm saying is that in dealing with this matter, it is a matter over and above the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, whether you like him or not. In fact, to very many people, he may not be particularly likable. A lot of Azimio people have very bitter memories of him, okay? Particularly during the campaigns.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, there is still the issue that you could end up discrediting the integrity of our constitution if you actually say that so long as you have 2/3 at the National Assembly and 2/3 at the Senate, it doesn't matter whether anyone is guilty or not. It's the same thing in the courts.
I see.
It should matter that when you have actually taken to court, that the magistrate determining the matter actually pays some heed and consideration as to whether or not the allegations against you are true or not. So that's the political one at the Senate. The legal one, of course, many cases have been filed. Those cases will not stop anytime soon. So we expect like there will be a lot of drama. You remember the Wambora case?
Right.
Yeah. So you are likely to see a repeat of that. And I expect, of course, now when the High Court still and the other courts will be dealing with this matter, if it turns out that the Senate is unable to protect the Constitution or to do its job in a serious way, then it will mean that the courts would have to play an important role, because the issue of protecting and safeguarding the Constitution of Kenya is one that befalls National Assembly, Senate, the President himself, because also the President himself is prohibited from engaging in malicious adventure like I want you out, I want to trade politically with your opposition.
That's right.
And get everybody to kick you out. Even the president is prohibited from sponsoring effectively, because I don't think this is a Mutuse thing, so that you can have the dignity of the Constitution.
All right. Now, clearly, there's a lot of intricacies here. There's a lot of critical things here. But I'm afraid, sir, that the time that we have is smaller than the topic that we're handling. But I'm really glad that you came and you're able to focus our minds on the implications of this. If I'm hearing you correctly, and Kenyans at home, I hope you're listening, the matter of precedence is key, and this will be one that will inform any other case going forward. It's the first time. And from your legal perspective, it's got to be done right.
It has to be done right for everybody's good, not for the deputy president,
but for the country.
But particularly for the credibility of our Constitution.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had Mr. Kibe Mungai. Clearly, once again, thank you so much for your insight. We will definitely have you here for a much more chunkier piece of time that allows you to delve into the nitty-gritties. But I appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Good people, historic times. Hope you're paying attention. My name is Victor Muyakane. On sign language has been Rhoda Nyamai, and earlier on we had the gentleman whose sign is Kevin. And we wish you a good night, full of God's blessings. And we certainly hope you keep it right here on TV47 as we cover what is clearly a historic moment in our existence. Good night. God bless you.